Hello, my name is Damon Friedman, co-founder and president of SOF Missions. As a 20-year veteran within Special Operations, I've gone through many challenges due to my military service and time in combat. We felt called to start SOF Missions to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in arms, focusing on suicide prevention and resiliency. Our mission at SOF Missions is to empower warriors to find purpose and be resilient. Since 2011, when we started the organization, almost 3 million men and women have deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. Unfortunately, the scars of war take a toll on their psychological, physical, social, and spiritual health. Many veterans feel a sense of hopelessness and a loss of purpose when they return to civilian life. They feel isolated and alone, unable to reconnect. And in the greatest of tragedies, over 20 veterans lose all hope and take their own lives. Our goal at SOF Missions is to provide veterans the tools and resources so that they don't become a statistic. We offer a unique approach to combating veteran suicide through a whole health intradisciplinary model. The Be Resilient program is a 4-pillar methodology that addresses the areas of psychological, physical, social, and spiritual wellness. We provide care through 3 delivery methods: medical clinics, retreats, and educational training. Since we started back in 2011, we have been able to reach veterans in all 50 states and have served over 3,000 veterans through the Be Resilient program. Being resilient is a multifaceted and complex issue. We know that to find a lasting solution, we have to address the whole warrior. Many challenges cannot be solved by providing the treatments and modalities of just one component, but by tackling them all. Now, we've expanded our services to include law enforcement and first responders. Together, we can make a lasting impact in the lives of warriors across the nation. To learn more, visit our website at sofmissions.org.
Proceed to your post assignment. All units proceed to your post assignment.
All right. Welcome back.
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation. The Misfit Nation Show.
We are a show founded by a veteran and hosted by 2 veterans and a military spouse. Our mission is to get people to tell their stories to the world. If you're an author, share your tips with the Misfit Nation. If you're a musician or an actor, our audience needs to know how they too can get into the business. Coaches, we love our coaches. Come on and share your tips with the Misfit Nation to help them become better versions of themselves. If you are a corporate leader or an entrepreneur, come on and show how you did it and how hard you have fought for success. If you are a veteran, first responder, or Gold Star family, we would love to have you come on and share your story with the Misfit Nation. We always have time for you. If you're feeling down, alone, or starting to see the darkness, Stop. Think about those who are around you. You are not alone. You will be missed. If you feel like your problems will be a burden to those in your inner circle or feel embarrassed, dial 988. If you are a veteran, take option 1. We need you to keep pushing forward. Don't make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you are a new listener, welcome to the Misfit Nation Show. Be sure to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast app. Also on our YouTube channel at @the_Misfit Nation. Subscribe and click the bell to keep you up to date on our latest episodes and all of our news. You can also find us on Heroes Media Group and About Face Radio. Now, let's get to the show!
Woo! All right. Welcome back to the Misfit Nation Show, your Sunday after dinner edition of the Misfit Nation Show. We know you have other things you can be doing tonight, other places you can be flying, like watching the NFL, or what other sports you want to watch for your favorite shows, but you're here with us, and thank you for collecting your frequent flyer miles. Tonight, before we get started, we'll start off with a somber note. Rest in peace, Police Officer David Cahuso, Miami Beach, Florida, Police Department, Florida. End of watch Tuesday, October 28th, 2025. Let's keep Officer Cahuso's family, his friends, his peers, and his community in your thoughts and prayers as they go through this sudden life change. They know every day they suit up, it could be their last day, but they don't want it to be. So let's keep them in your thoughts as you go forward. Tonight, we have a great guest coming on. He's a speaker, author, songwriter who equips people to guarantee their success through his D.R.I.V.E framework. After losing his first wife just 2 weeks after their son was born, he rebuilt his life from the ground up, overcoming grief, single fatherhood, and a complete career reinvention. So without further ado, let's welcome Mr. Weston Brandon to the Misfit Nation show. Welcome, Weston.
Hey, Rich. Thanks for having me, man.
It's great to have you here, brother. It's always good to connect with people from different backgrounds and see if we can reach our communities together and maybe help reach one, teach one here tonight.
Yeah, for sure. I was doing some digging on your show and who you talked to, and over the past couple of weeks since we got hooked up to get on here. And I gotta say, I love what you're doing. It resonates well with some little side projects that I volunteered to do some of myself. So I'm sure we'll get to talk a little bit about that today.
Outstanding. So with that, Weston, I gave basically the elevator speech pitch on you right there. If you don't mind, dig back into your goodie bag and go back as far as you want and bring us up to date from as far back as you want to go to how we got here.
Yeah. So you guys heard Rich say that I lost my wife when I was 23 years old. I was very successful for all intents and purposes in my career that I was in at the time. I was in sales, selling mechanical engineering software, actually to a lot of companies that supplied our military. I got to tour some really cool places, and was making good money at 23 years old, and had life for, all the goals that I had in life I was checking off pretty quick. I'd gotten married, had a good career. We had just gotten a house, and we're deciding like it's time to have a family. And my wife got pregnant, and she suffered what's called an incompetent cervix at about 25 weeks along her pregnancy. Cliff notes of what that is basically she dilated but didn't go into labor. So basically the door opens and baby can come out. And that's obviously not ideal. So they put her on bed rest for a week, and he ends up coming a week later. He was coming out breech. So they did an emergency C-section. At 26 weeks, he weighed 1 pound, 13 ounces. But other than just being too small, he was pretty much fine. He didn't have any developmental issues they were worried about. He didn't have any birth defects or anything like that. Like, he's kind of a miracle coming that early without any complications. Just needed a CPAP. He didn't even need to have the breathing tube down his throat. She suffered a pulmonary embolism 2 weeks after that, though, which is a blood clot that usually starts in your deep leg veins and gets stuck in your lungs. So you have a pulmonary embolism, you just can't absorb any more oxygen. And I was with her at home when it happened. So she collapsed in my arms, and I had to do CPR on her for a while until EMT showed up and eventually took over for me. And well, long story short, she didn't make it. So I had to, overhaul everything I was doing. And I quickly became a widowed single father at 23 years old, and new dad, like all kind of, within the same 2 to 3 week time frame, and had to figure out, what do I do now?
Wow. That had to be a punch in the gut and the heart, of course, at the same time. The love, you lose your love of your life, and you have a newborn son, 23 years old. Those of you who don't remember being 23 or haven't hit 23 yet, you're not all there yet. You're not fully equipped with all the tools to do everything on your own. You may think you are, but you're not. And I'm sure this did not help.
Right. Yeah. I had to lean on family support a lot. My church home support, there were people there that were bringing me meals and trying to take care of us. And my in-laws, my first wife's parents were there. They were living kind of a nomadic lifestyle in this big fancy RV that they had bought. So they were at least, in a position that they could get down there quick and stay there with me kind of long-term over the next couple of months that my son was in the NICU, because he was there until, I think that's 2.5 months ish, because he was born late March and he discharged mid-June. And yeah, so it's like 2.5 months. And for two of those months, I was a single dad in there, just kind of living in the NICU with him.
Wow, that's tough. No matter who's there with you, living there in the NICU as a single dad, going through life's change. We talked about the life's change for the officer and his family at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You're the opposite side there. Your wife never came home from the hospital. and your son is now in the hospital. You're there with him, and you're going through the ebbs and flows of now this new thing you call life. And that had to be an amazing journey, just for a hard journey for you and her family, her parents, as they were sitting there, coming in their RV to be with you and help you. And they're going through that wave of emotions as well. So it had to be kind of crazy at that time.
Oh yeah. I had to lean back on everything that I believed or thought I believed was true at the time. I'm a huge man of faith, believe in Jesus Christ, and I make no reservations about that. And I served a mission for 2 years of my life for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, trying to share that with some other people and kind of develop my own faith. And I had some really, really powerful experiences during that time, but also some really, really hard ones where I had felt abandoned for one reason or another, and had powerful experiences of God kind of showing me like, no, I'm here and I can take some of this from you if you'll let me, And so some of those experiences from earlier in life, I had to use as, I guess, kind of a crutch to remind myself, like, while I haven't gone through something quite this nuts yet, I had been through some things that at the time felt like the hardest thing I'd ever done in my entire life, and had been able to climb out of that. And it was just, I mean, obviously it's a different situation, so you're not doing it the same way again, but the same anchors that I learned and used previously, I had to use just at deeper levels when this happened.
Wow. It's just amazing to see you sitting here now and just talking matter of factly about this, knowing that years ago when this happened, that it was probably just everything in your mind was going 100 miles an hour. What do I do now? How do I get out of this hole? I'm in a hole now. I don't know how to get out. We all rely on faith. I know many people say they don't believe, but they have faith in something and they believe.
Right.
And we all believe in something. There's a greater something out there than us. And you have to believe that someone is going to pull you up. And we all pray at some point during the day and hope for something. You were put in a situation where you were praying for what to do next. And
yeah,
that had to be a wild, wild experience to pray for that and things start to come together. How'd that go? How was that feeling? How'd it work out there?
Oh man. Well, again, I had to lean back on experience that I had previously where I had felt God talking to me, and I had, taken messages from him, and I was like, I need another one. I need lots more, I need some direction here. And the first big one that became another kind of one of my personal spiritual and emotional anchors was while I was actually in the ICU, but I hadn't been allowed to go back to see my wife yet. We had, only just arrived at the hospital a few minutes before that. And there's a social worker that was assigned to us that is like relaying information between the ICU room or the operating room, wherever she's at, and to us, like keeping us up to date. And had been told that at this point, we'd probably been in the hospital for 10, 15 minutes. And remember, the social worker comes back and says, hey, we finally just barely got a pulse back. So we'd been doing CPR. I mean, from the time that I started to the time that they finally got a pulse back, that was probably a little over 30 minutes. It was way too long. So the social worker comes and tells me and my in-laws are there, and they say, hey, we have room for mom and dad to come back real quick, but husband, we're going to come get you in, just like 2 minutes if we can get enough people out of the room and cleared up now that she's, somewhat stabilized. And so my mother and father-in-law are taken out of the room, and I'm left in there completely alone by myself. And that was kind of where I had this, my crisis moment, because up until that point, everything had been going 100 miles an hour. And I hadn't been alone, really, with the exception of the time I was doing CPR before the EMTs showed up. And then, but at any time after that, somebody was with me the whole time. So now that I'm finally alone again, I take this opportunity. I'm like, God, you've talked to me before. You've helped me through some crazy things. But if there's any other time in my life where I need you to say something and you cannot leave me hanging, this is the moment, right? And so I just knelt down and prayed and kind of told him that. I'm like, I don't know what I need. I don't really know where my brain's at because it's going 100 miles an hour, but I need you to say something. And previous in life, I had, felt like God was talking to me through either music or just opening up scriptures, opening up the word. And music seemed kind of a weird situation at the time. So I had an app on my phone where I had scriptures on it. And I just opened that up and closed my eyes. I just started tapping, just, whatever would open up. And I opened up a scripture talking about the resurrection. And I was like, being reminded of that was what spoke peace to my heart at the time. And I kind of felt God with me there in the room, reminding me of that. But in the same breath, I guess it was also kind of what I took of his way of saying, like, she's not going to make it. And you're going this, what you believe, but maybe a little bit more abstractly before, is this is real for you. You're going to have to lean on this. And just the feeling that I had when I was reading some of that became a huge anchor for me later, because over the coming months, even though I had experiences with God and I felt him talking to me and I felt love from him and from family, and I had an amazing support system. I really did. I was never alone through any of that, even though at the time, mentally and emotionally, I felt completely alone. I really wasn't. But that didn't fix my anger about the situation, my anger towards God. Really, I was pretty pissed off towards God for, like, in my perspective. I was like, hey, I just went and sacrificed 2 years of my life to teach people about Jesus in, way far away from where I'm even from. And this is what I get for it. Like, really? Like I went and gave so much of myself, and this is how I get repaid. And I was having such a hard time reconciling that within myself. And I was just so angry at everything, and I was not a pleasant person to be around for a while. But that kind of leads into the redemption arc of the stories, is meeting my second wife. The widows and widowers circles you'll often hear referred to as your chapter 2. And she's my miracle. And I've now, remarried, and I have a couple more kids now. So life's looking a lot better now.
Well, that's good. And sometimes when you feel you're at your darkest point, like you were doubting God at that point and asking him the why, and all of a sudden the light comes in, which is your new wife, and your circles collided like a Venn diagram. You kind of were going in a circle and you hit each other, and now you're building another life, a new life, not another life, a new life. You have more children plus your son, and things are looking up now.
Yeah. In fact, normally I would point behind me and you would see pictures of all of them, but my wife has rearranged for Halloween. There's different decorations there right now, but normally there's a picture of my first wife there with her organ donor badges there, and a picture of all of us together, and the places where we got married, and just things like that are usually what I have stationed behind me, is kind of telling that story, but you can't see it right now. The only thing that's still there is that painting right there. This is a painting of Christ with a woman in a scarlet robe that's kind of, she's down on her knee, resting on his knee, and he's just kind of, consoling her. The reason that I have that painting was my first wife, Lauren. She always loved that painting, because she always told me that she felt like the woman in that painting, because she hadn't always been strong in her faith. In fact, when I first met her, she was really kind of coming back into building a life of faith, and from her days in college being a hooligan and doing crazy stuff, and which we all do, but she felt really she felt a deep connection to that painting. So after she passed away, I got a little bit of life insurance. It wasn't anything crazy, like a year's worth of her salary, but with what little I had left after funeral costs and all that, I bought that painting and hung up there. But my second wife, Kearsley, she's actually back here behind the wall making dinner now. She was, it's hard to describe what she means to me, because she's what I think God used to come and really accelerate my healing process, right? The reason that I was even open at all to meeting another person and meeting and getting into another relationship was during the time that I was having my struggles with God, right? And somebody at some point told me that even if I was mad at him, I still needed to pray. And at least if the only thing I could tell him was that I was mad at him, I at least needed to keep doing that. Yeah. And I did do that for a while. And as I kept doing that, I kept feeling this pull, this tug kind of on my soul a little bit, that I needed to put myself out there. I needed to do whatever mental and emotional work inside of me needed to be done so that I would be open to that, So I started going to a therapist. I was, again, very blessed that a good family friend of mine runs his own clinical practice, and one of his niche areas that he focuses on is grief. So that was convenient, got to work with him. And it was through that process that I finally, I kept feeling it pull at me so hard. And the thought of being with another woman in any shape or form made me absolutely nauseous at the time. It made me sick to even think about that, but I couldn't deny that something was pulling on me. So I kind of took a step of faith, and I downloaded this dating app that's local to Utah, where I'm from. And I just put pictures of me and my son on there. I was like, I'm sure 90% of the people on here are just looking for hookups. So I'm just going to put the whole story on here. So I'm like, I don't want to even have conversations with people that are just looking to mess around. So by doing that, I figured, I'm like, well, this is going to filter out probably most of them. And the ones who do like swipe on this or whatever are either going to be absolutely nuts or emotionally intelligent people that are not looking to play games, And well, my wife was one of those that wasn't looking to play games. she had been married previously to it, and it wasn't a good relationship, and she'd gotten out of it, and life and kind of moved forward with her. So the fact that she was even open to dating a guy that had another kid was a miracle in and of itself, that kind of stems from her life experience, And yeah, that was, she's my miracle. If I hadn't had intentionally done the work within myself that I needed to be open to that, then there's no way that I could have been ready for that once the opportunity came. You know what I mean?
Definitely. And there's not many people that will openly say, I'll accept you and you having a child and stay with you for long term like you have. So it was a blessing in disguise that you met each other without, with that swipe right, whatever it was, whatever app it is, however it works. I've never done them, but I always hear swipe right, swipe left. So whichever way it worked,
Yeah.
it worked out for us. So it's
Yeah,
awesome
yeah.
that it worked out. And we do have a
it
question
was-
from the audience already in here. So this might be the perfect time for this question.
Oh, good. Let's do it.
From Carrie Owens 3. Weston, what was the hardest part of rebuilding your life after such a loss? Thank you, Carrie Owens.
Probably the fear that I wouldn't be able to do it again, because of how hard that how much effort it took to get to the point that I had in my career, how much effort it took to get to the point that I was in life, where I was married and I had a house, all these kinds of things. And I felt like everything had kind of got blown to smithereens. I couldn't do my job anymore. My job in sales, I had to do plenty of cold-ish calling, cold, warm calling, whatever, and find sales opportunities. I was in charge of a particular territory at the time, but still, even just picking up the phone to call somebody that wasn't expecting me to talk to them already put so much anxiety in my head. I couldn't handle it, even though before this traumatic event, I was very good at it and had no anxiety whatsoever with that. And I tried for months and couldn't figure it out. So that put me in a position where I was very, very nervous, very, very afraid that there was something broken about me that was going to withhold me being able to successfully rebuild my life, but also to provide for a new family and to achieve success the way that I saw success was, which was being able to adequately provide financially for a family, right? And to have another family, more children, and to not be relying on somebody else for my basic needs. Like a huge piece of my own, I guess, pride is as a husband and a father is that I provide for my family, and I was worried that I couldn't do that. So overcoming that fear and transforming that fear instead into momentum was probably the hardest part. That took a lot of tears, a lot of prayers, a lot of talking with other people that cared about me to help me to kind of get out of that headspace that I wasn't gonna be able to do it.
And you've definitely moved on. You've definitely propelled forward and northward instead of staying in a rut. You have your wife, 2 more children, your son, and you started your organization where you help other people. You help them break through their self-doubt and their setbacks, and they use the power, turn all that into power of movement, so that in momentum. talk a little bit about that, and of course, you mentioned earlier about your side projects. We can jump into that as well.
Sure, yeah. So there's a couple little side projects I got going on. I teach defensive handgun classes because I've been very, very involved in defensive handgun firearms training for a number of years. And the reason I mention that is that some of the teaching kind of stemmed from that, because a lot of the students that would come through these classes were dealing with some deep traumas of their own. And we had a number of women come through those classes who had been assaulted, who had dealt with things in life, and this taking this class and getting a concealed carry license and these kinds of things were a way that they were kind of taking ownership of their own life and saying, like, I am empowering myself to say no, you know what I mean? And to help people kind of walk through the mindset shifts that were needing to happen through such a simple thing like teaching them how to adequately carry and use a firearm for self-defense was such an interesting, I don't know the word for it. It's such an interesting experience that's kind of where it started, that I started to feel like I'm enjoying this, not because, I mean, I love guns, sure, but I'm enjoying this more because of the life-changing lessons that I'm able to instill in some of these people. And I'm able to share my story in this, you know. And recently I've gotten involved with a group in Utah called the I Love You Bro Project, which is the only men's mental health organization that does support groups for men that's evidence-based. And when I say that, I mean that every single man that comes through into one of these free support groups has to fill out a little thing, and they basically self-report on where their mindset is at, what are they struggling with, what do they need, and every single person that comes through that, we get that data from them immediately, and then we build workshops for them based off of the real-time data. And some of the stories that I've heard, I'm going to turn my camera back on here. Some of the stories that I've heard from men in the short time that I've been involved with those guys has spurred me along kind of the same path. The same lessons are applied. And in my second career, I shifted away from sales and I went to trade school and got into HVAC and refrigeration. And then as a day job, I fix commercial kitchen equipment, fix ice cream machines. So, you know, if you want to have an episode on McDonald's ice cream, we can do a whole episode on that. But what quickly, I applied the same tenacity that I did in my sales career and in other times of my life to learning a completely different trade, and became very successful at it very quickly. And I learned very quickly, and I could also teach really effectively. So the guys that came after me that got hired, pretty soon, I just kind of became the trainer, right? Like the new guys would come in, they'd have them in the shop for a little bit, and then they just say, okay, go with Wes. And they just have them ride with me all the time because I was good at teaching them. And one of the reasons why is because initially the conversations would start technical. You know, I'm asking them, what are they learning at school? Thermodynamics, electrical stuff, asking questions about that. But the more I got to spend time with them, the more I would start to understand where they have some character flaws that they need to work on that's holding them back from being able to learn as quickly as they need to, because they have wounds that they're hiding. And when they're hiding from these wounds that they have either from childhood or teenager or whatever, they're putting on a mask and they're wearing this inauthentic version of themselves outward, and everything they're trying to learn has to get through those extra layers that they've stacked on top of themselves before it can actually stick. So they don't learn nearly as fast. So helping them to figure out what are those masks, how can we take them off, was also a very unexpected but a very interesting portion of training some of those guys. And as having all these experiences and starting to have a general idea of how to develop somebody, because I'm basically teaching them what I had to do for myself through earlier in life and then going through therapy and overhauling and, you know, new career. Eventually it turned into, I was like, I'm going to put this on a book. And that's kind of where it came from. The book is called The Overhaul, Fixing Your Mindset and Driving Success. And that is just basically it's the gospel according to West, right? It's what I think or what worked really well for me and what I teach other people on how to force success in a life the way that they want it to look. And it's a very, very faith-centered book, but it's also a very scientific, technical centered book. So if you like science stuff, you're going to love the book. If you like faith stuff, you're going to love the book, and bridging those two worlds together on how to use the world that God has created the way he's created and the laws that he's put in place to force success and basically how to exercise our faith is where that came from.
What's the best place to get Overhaul at?
Oh, it's just on Amazon. So if you search the Overhaul, Weston Brandon, whatever, it's on Amazon. Or actually, I tell you what, the easiest is just go to my website, westonbrandon.com, and then there's a little button, just hit the book, and it'll take you right to it on Amazon.
Awesome. So go to westonbrandon.com. I've shared the link in the chat so you can find it there, and it'll also be in the notes for those who listen to this on audio. And as soon as you mentioned Overhaul, a question came in about Overhaul. So it's like AI is either AI is in here or some algorithms working very well here tonight.
Perfect.
At Jelly Food wants to know, what message do you hope readers take away from the Overhaul? Thank you, Jelly.
Yeah, thanks, man. If I had to boil the entire book down to one sentence, it would be that clarity comes through committed movement. And that whatever, I mean, that could be, you're looking for clarity on just about anything, right? But say if you're looking on clarity, what to do with your life after the rug's been pulled out from under you, the framework that I teach in that book, I call D.R.I.V.E. Discover, resolve, invest, visualize, and elevate. Discover and resolve kind of go together because it's discovering, as I mentioned, the wounds that you have, the masks that you wear, but also discovering other things about yourself, like strengths and weaknesses, which can be situationally dependent, of course, but discovering more of who you are really, like underneath the masks, right? And then resolving those things that are not in harmony with what you want your life to be, and like diving into the engine room of your soul and figuring out if you like what's in there or not. If you do that enough, then everybody that I've talked to, if they've done enough self-improvement work, kind of like that, diving into themselves, then they start to experience that same kind of pull that I was talking about earlier that I experienced with, I need to find another woman, I need to find another career, and they start feeling this pull that I need to do something. I think everybody has a little bit of that, but those who can do enough work within themselves can start to get a general idea where it's coming from. Not exactly, but like I talk about, like it's a trumpet that's calling to you way off, a few ridges over, a couple mountain ranges over or something. You can hear it, but you don't know exactly where it is, but it's generally somewhere in this direction, right? And as long as you move that way, anywhere within this kind of margin of error, you're still getting closer to it. At least you're not moving the opposite direction, right? And that step, that movement, is the invest part of that framework. The visualize is where I start to bring in the faith and the science-based things on how to make sure that your investments pay off. And it's really visualizing where you're going, but specifically with gratitude as if you've already made it there. Because when I was deciding that I was going to teach this more, and I was trying to, finish overhauling my own life and get better in my career, I was learning a lot in trade school about the laws of thermodynamics and electricity and stuff, and really learned a lot about what's called the law of vibration. Specifically, that we transmit energy through vibration. It's how we make the lights work. It's how we, in the HVAC world, it's how we capture the heat energy in your house and get it outside if we need to make it colder. Or the opposite, it's how we capture heat energy and bring it inside. It's all transmitted through the vibration of molecules. And anybody that goes to trade school for refrigeration is going to learn how that works. Then I read some books on some ways to think about that for personal success, that when you visualize something, you're kind of putting out this frequency to the world, kind of a thing, is a very common idea in self-improvement circles, right? There's a couple of books that people have written on it that got popular back in the 90s. Like I think The Secret by Rhonda Byrne was one, which I liked, but it was a little bit too new world for me. A couple of other books I liked even more was by a lady named Leslie Householder, her Jackrabbit Factor series. But all in all, after reading some of these books and them talking about how these things work, and me understanding the science behind that and being able to bring those two together, put me in a position where I could start experimenting and hypothesizing. Like, okay, if understanding this is how the world works, how God's made the world to work, and these are some of these self-improvement ideas that people have that seem to align with that, how can I experiment with this? How can I try it? And that visualized part is what I did. It's actually how we got the house that we live in. We wrote down exactly what we wanted as if we had already gotten it, specifically expressing gratitude that we had already received it. The reason that we did that was because as I was studying this more, I found some studies done by an organization called the Heart Math Institute, where they found that your heart exhibits an electromagnetic frequency that's way stronger than that of your mind. And it has nothing to do with the electrical signal from your brain to your heart to pump. It's a completely unique signal that they can pick up off of your heart from several feet away. And this is a scientific journal that's putting this, okay? As they they start reading some of this stuff, and they can sense this frequency coming off of people, they started doing some other experiments about, okay, what about different emotions, different mindsets or thought patterns? How does that affect these frequencies coming off of people? They found the most chaotic and disproportionate and disharmonious frequencies were when people were feeling doubt and fear. The ones that were the strongest, most cohesive and constructive frequencies that were very strong, very stable, and very resilient to outside influence were that of gratitude and authenticity. Not even like love or happiness or anything. Those were still lower. It was authenticity was number one and gratitude was number two. And so as I'm thinking of this and I'm understanding from going to trade school and the career that I'm in on how magnetism works, how electricity works, how thermodynamics work through vibration and stuff like this, I'm reading and I'm studying on this electromagnetic frequency off of somebody's mind and off their heart and how it relates with different emotions. I'm like, well, because I understand that magnetic frequencies are attracting and they're also repelling, if I can be authentic and have gratitude towards what I want, then maybe if this is real, maybe I can like start to, I guess what people call manifest, like that's the word people call it, which was kind of hippie BS to me at the time. But, now I'm like, so there might actually be something there. And so we wrote down, this is what we want. And we wrote down in the first person as if we'd already got it, expressing gratitude to God for having given it to us. And then we did everything we could to start to make it happen. And we got the house, literally every single thing that we wrote down checked off. It took a few months, but we got it. And now looking back, I'm like, I should have added another bedroom on there. Or I should, or like a couple or something like that. But that was the first big one. I'm like, oh man, this might actually be legit. And whether you think of that works metaphorically or you think that works literally, I don't think it matters. It at least puts you in a position to make things happen. So that visualize, the V of that framework. And then the E, I put elevate, because this is kind of coming from my faith-based perspective, that I believe God's purpose for us and what he wants to do with us is to bring to pass the immortality and eternal life of man. I think he wants to get us back to him. That's how I think. So in my opinion, if my goals and what my version of success looks like blesses the lives of as many people as possible, I think he's naturally on board with it. And I think he's naturally going to partner with you to make that happen, as long as, you're doing it for those reasons and not selfish reasons. To take care of my family, right? I have a goal to make a hell of a lot more money so that I can take care of both my family and my parents. And I'm using that as my motivation for doing those, not I just want to have money so that I look good and me monster kind of crap, So that's the elevate part, is elevating yourself to the point that you're doing everything for other people. And I think if you do that, then that's the catalyst to making your goals happen faster. So that might have been a long answer to that question, what they hope to get out of the overhaul. But essentially it comes down to clarity and comes through committed movement. You have to actually get up off your butt and start moving. And if you want clarity on where you're going, you have to start moving towards it. And then that drive that I just shared about is, well, here's how you force it to happen.
Right. And again, as you were talking about that, someone asked a question about drive, and there was also a question right before that. So we'll go with the first one first and then drive second.
I'll be a little shorter on this answer, I promise.
Okay. This one is from @HellOfALove. How does faith play a role in maintaining clarity and focus during adversity? Thank you, Hell of a Love.
Oh, well, for me, in my experience, it gave me the filter of why things are happening to a degree. And it gave me hope that there was another side to that, and that there was going to be something good that could come from that, even though in the moment, it sure didn't feel like it. Right. So when I was in the depths of the anger and the depths of the despair and stuff, my faith was really the only thing that I had to go on. If you remember, that scripture that I mentioned was talking about the resurrection, and so that was something that I would have to remember, that I personally believed, and my faith was that my wife was not lost to me forever, that I would see her again someday. and that when that great and glorious day happened, like it would all be worth it, and I just had to trust that the joy that I would feel there would far outweigh the pain that I was in now. And also on another note, I had a responsibility to take care of my kid. He was my why. He was why I had to get up. He was why I had to figure it out, because this kid depended on me. And I guess that kind of stems from my faith too, that I believe that he was gifted to me from God to not only help me through that, but so that we could make, positive differences in other people's lives, and that I could help him become the man that he's meant to be. That kid's probably going to be something else. He's 6 now, and he's already, like, the emotional maturity is a lot more than I think I was at 6. So I'm excited to see where he goes. But yeah, it's just the anchor that keeps everything roughly in focus. It kept me from going absolutely insane. I went a little insane, but not all the way.
You didn't go full insanity. That's good. You never can go that full way. But you say he's growing into this great young man. You're part of that. You are the reason why he's growing into that. You and your village, your tribe that came around
Absolutely.
you and brought your arms around him as well. So all of you are doing the right things, and you can see it through his growth. And that's God's work. That's your work right there doing that.
Yeah, and I have to give credit to my wife, Kearsley, too, because she's all he knows is mom. He knows who his biological mother is. He, like I said, we normally have pictures of her back here. All 3 of my kids know her as Mommy Lauren. That's just when we mention Mommy Lauren, that's who we're talking about. It's normal to them. They just have an extra set of grandparents. So they have 3 sets of grandparents instead of 2 sets of grandparents. So to them, it's normal. They just have extra family, extra people to lean on. It's pretty cool.
Definitely. Yeah, it's almost like a mini Brady Bunch going on there. So it's good.
Yeah.
The second question is from this is a wild name too. He Job Dan 05. Can you explain what the D.R.I.V.E. framework stands for and how it works? He must have just missed as you said it, so you just
probably. Yeah, I'll just really, really quick. D.R.I.V.E. is discover, resolve, invest, visualize, and elevate. And that is, it's not a step-by-step process, but it's a system to live by to force success the way that you want it to look. Discover yourself, essentially, especially the wounds and the mask that you wear. Resolve those things. Invest as heavily in yourself as you can. Visualize where you're going so it actually happens, then elevate other people along the way.
Outstanding. See, you answered that quickly. You got this. See? Much better.
Much better.
So when you wrote Overhaul and you started taking that to students and schools as well, do you tour all around the country or just stay right where you are there?
I go wherever people want me at. About a month ago, I was in Tennessee at Lincoln Memorial University doing a keynote concert with some original music that I had written to kind of go along with the story and the framework that I teach. That one was a group of veterinary science students, and the guy that hired me to come out and do that, he had a connection to Utah, and I actually went to the same school as his wife, so they kind of found me through some Facebook stuff. And anyway, he's like, yeah, our these veterinary science students are very high achieving, very motivated, very driven people, but there's an intense sense of anxiety and fear that, like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to run a successful veterinary practice. A lot of these people are having to go into business for a practice, or I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish my coursework because it's very demanding. So they wanted a message of how to transform fear into momentum and force success, right? So it worked very well for them. And I'm also, just in a couple of weeks, I'll be up at a school district in Idaho that licensed the D.R.I.V.E. framework for me to create journals for their students. And so we have this whole journal to take their students through the Discover, Resolve, Invest. Specifically, their issue that they told me they were having was that their student, this is a rural school district in Idaho, a little tiny place. And thankfully, I just got all the agreements signed so I can actually tell you where it is. It's called Chalice, Idaho, tiny little town. And they said their students, for some reason, through the school counselor was telling me that there were some TikTok trends these kids were all super involved in for some reason that were making them feel like it was less than to be from a small town, and that they were restricted. They didn't have, like, success wasn't going to really happen for them because they were from this little rural town. I'm like, I grew up on a cattle ranch. I didn't graduate from a small town. We eventually moved more into the city right before I graduated. But the main reason why I got the job interview that I did for the trades job that I have now was because I came from that background. The guy, I literally asked him, I said, why did you have me come and interview? but not have anybody else interview. I was the only one he called.
Wow.
He says, because on your resume, it said you grew up on a cattle ranch. Was that true? I says, he says, well, I figured I wouldn't have to ask you what to do more than once. I was like, true. Okay. So, I got the job so I was just sharing some of those stories. She's like, that's exactly what we need for these kids. So we tweaked the D.R.I.V.E framework to be, instead of what are my wounds that I have, it was more like, what are the lies that I'm allowing myself to believe? And how can I change those lies into actually build success and be confident and excited for graduation instead of like overwhelmingly depressed that my life's just going to crash and burn. Right. And so, yeah, it goes other places. Like actually in a couple of weeks, I'll be in Texas and San Antonio speaking to a widows and widowers conference. So, we can tweak the material for that. Obviously being a widower myself, that fit really well. So they'd heard my story and wanted me to come down, do a little keynote concert for them, sing some of the music with them. And it's cool. It's fun. I really like it. I'll go anywhere as long as I can afford it.
All right, listeners, you heard him. He'll go anywhere, and he likes small towns. I had to look up where Lincoln Memorial University was. I'm in Tennessee, so when you said it, I was like,
oh, yeah.
I don't know where it is, so I have to look. It's due way east from here.
Right at the Cumberland Gap, right there.
Yeah. It's the first thing that popped up, Cumberland Gap. So I know where that is.
There you go.
So I know right where you were now. I'm west of Nashville, where I am. So.
Oh, gotcha. Cool.
Totally opposite direction, but Tennessee stretches. It's long and thin, I guess we can call ourselves.
Right.
So we spread across. It's great that you're able to have that outreach and be able to tweak it to the audience and show it, reach more of an audience, basically, because you can tweak the framework. It's not just rigid where it has to be this, and this. You can tweak it so you're reaching those middle schools, you're reaching them college kids in veterinary sciences, or you can go out to, like, you go into the widows and widowers conference, tweak it to them with your own personal story, because that's your wheelhouse right there. That's perfect because you've been through the same thing they're going through, and you can talk about everything they're going through, and none of you will be speaking a different language. It's going to be the same language.
Right. Yeah. The widows and widowers circles, or I guess the grief circles in general, are the groups that I hope, and I know I will over time, be successful enough speaking to the groups that'll pay so that I could donate my time to go speak to the widows and widowers groups. You know what I mean? So, because that is a niche enough group that like, I'm not going to make a career off of speaking to only those people, I don't think. So I would much rather be able to donate my time to those people, because that's, when those people are in that situation, they really need what the stories that I've been through, and it resonates really well. So that's why I like going to schools, because schools will pay. And then if the schools can pay, then I can donate my time to a widows conference somewhere,
You should look into getting with Gold Star families for the military as well, because a lot of them about the same age as you when they suffered their loss, or that your age or younger, actually. We had some that were 18, 19 years old when they lost their spouse, from here when I was with the 101st. And that's the shocking part when you come home and you see the memorial service, and it's those young ladies or young men that just lost their wives, and they're only 18, 19 years old. They're just starting their lives and now starting over.
Yeah.
That's sudden loss. You did it at 23, which is not much different from there where they were. So you can resonate real easy.
Yeah. I didn't serve myself, but I had as a very strong military families that I come from on both sides. Lots of World War II and Korea stuff on my side. I'm very passionate about veteran stuff. I have lots of veteran friends. Well, I mentioned I teach those defensive handgun classes. Yeah. Some of my assistant instructors are veterans. One guy did anti-sex trafficking work south of the border. Lots of missions he went on, and has some wild stories.
Send them our way. We'll talk to them. We do have a question from this is another good name here.
Making bacon. All right.
What inspired you to combine motivational speaking with music in your keynote concerts? Thanks, Making Bacon.
Ooh, okay. Well, how much time do you have? Because this is a story.
About 10 minutes left. So.
Okay, yeah, I can condense this in just a couple minutes. So, I had a really powerful experience, probably January of earlier this year, that I needed to do the speaking, that I needed to share my story, I needed to get it out there, but I didn't know what that looked like. So, I got involved with some other people that did speaking for a living, and started, networking and making friends, and that's where I met somebody that could help me write a book, and so I got the book out. But then I was having struggle kind of fine tuning who is it that I really want to speak to, and what else should I do to make myself unique, that people would actually recognize me. How can I differentiate myself? And I was praying about that, and I was actually feeling very frustrated with God about making me feel like I needed to do this speaking thing when I had just finally reached a point in my career where I could kind of relax. I had reached my first level of my goal for income, like how much I was getting paid. I just got a good raise. I was like, okay, I can coast, and I kind of know where the rest of my life's going. And then out of nowhere, this, hey, download from God shows up. It's like, you need to go start speaking. I was like, great. Okay. Now a whole nother thing to work on. So I was a little frustrated with him for that, because I felt like he just wasn't giving me a break. So one of these friends that I mentioned told me to go to this Christian men's retreat called Warrior Heart. And it's based off of a book by John Eldredge called Wild at Heart. And that book is specifically about, it's for men to help them figure out where they left their heart behind, where they lost their heart, and then reconnect it with God. So I go to this Christian men's retreat thinking that I already did that pretty good, but whatever. It was a suggestion. So I went, changed my life again, right? It was amazing. One of the things I realized up there was that I viewed God as an abusive father. Didn't realize that I had that perception of him until I went up there and was going through some of these sessions. So after one of these sessions, I'm kneeling down, praying about this, bawling my eyes out, realizing that I view God as an abusive father, and I view my dad as a better dad than even God. And the message that came, I actually just wrote a song named this, was called You Asked Me for This. Not in the sense of shut up and deal with it, you deserve this, kind of you asked for this. It was more like a scripture in Jeremiah 1:5 is, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. That scripture was kind of bounced around in my head, and I got that message. You asked me for this before you came here. Like you wanted to become a particular version of yourself to do whatever you're doing. And there were some things would have to happen to give you the opportunity to develop yourself into that kind of a person. And we talked about some of those things, and you said, bring it on, was kind of the overall message that I got. Right. And that might be a hot take for somebody, but that's what I got. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay, that completely like flipped my relationship with God, my perspective of him, and changed a lot of things. As I'm kind of recovering from this, walking back to the barn where they were doing these sessions, this was a retreat up in the Wasatch Mountains. Had this big barn where some therapists would come and give a session about something. As we're walking back to this next session, out of nowhere, the words hit my mind so hard, and it hit my heart so hard. It's really hard to describe what that feels like, but it said, it's time to write your song. And I stopped walking right there. I'm like, whoa, okay. I had gotten a feeling that singing was going to be something I'd have to be willing to do, because I'd done a lot with music previously in life, but I'd never written music before. So then I started like arguing with God in my head. I'm like, are you serious? I don't even know anybody that writes music. How the heck am I even going to do that? So then I walk into this next session with now that thought's bouncing around in my head. Like, how am I even going to go about this? And the session starts, and they have this guy get up on stage before the next speaker gets up there, and he gets up and he has this guitar, and he says, hey guys, I help people write music for a living, and these guys asked me to write a song for this retreat. So here it is. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like, here it is, dude. Here's the guy, And so I connected with him after that, and he just helped me kind of figure out what's the thought process behind writing music and how do you do that. So very quickly I started thinking about that, and immediately 3 songs, like the lyrics would not stop over the next week. I wrote lyrics to 3 songs, and then a 4th one a little bit later. And those have now worked into my keynote, and my keynote works perfectly well with the messages that those songs portray. And it's been a wild ride, but that's kind of how it happened. It's a little crazy, but it's fun.
That's outstanding. And like we talked just before you answer that question, man, we blazed through this hour, and it's great when that happens, because that means we're having a good conversation, and you're sharing a great story. Of course, the story doesn't start out well, but it is ending well, because you've learned so much. You've learned, you grew, and you're growing still, and you're taking all these tests that God, all these fastballs that God throws at you. You're swinging and hitting them home runs. Just had to throw that baseball analogy in. Game 7 was last night.
Yeah, I watched it.
There's a home run that won it, so I had to throw the analogy in there. So kudos to me for remembering that tonight. But Weston, it's been great chatting with you for this last 54 minutes or so. We ask our guests 2 questions at the end. The first one is, what's the best way for our audience, the Misfit Nation, to get in contact with you if they want to either speak to you just like we were, or maybe have you come speak to one of their conferences or something?
my website has a contact form, and I promise I actually do get those emails, and I read every single one of them. So you go to my website, westonbrandon.com. That is the most direct way. The social media that I'm the most active on is Facebook, and that's just facebook.com/westonbrandon. And then I'm on, Instagram and TikTok and those two, because as much as I hate social media, that's where the people I'm trying to speak to hang out. So, I have to do that. But
Yes.
yeah, Facebook and my website would be the two quickest, easiest ways to get to me.
Awesome. I put your website's going across the bottom, and it's in the comments again right now. And the last question we ask every one of our guests, right before we let them go, we put them on that hot seat. What's 3 things the Misfit Nation can start doing tomorrow to be better people?
Well, my faith is the anchor to all of my personal morals and my personal values. So the first step would be figure out, like, what do you believe in, and get really straight about that. Like, not being, I'm not sure about what I believe in. If you're in the position where you're like, I'm not sure if I believe in God, I'm not sure if I believe in whatever other thing your thing is, figure that out. Because if you're wavering in your belief on some type of spiritual things, I personally believe it's really hard to not waver emotionally and mentally when trials come along. So figuring that out first, I think, is priority number 1. The second thing is, as weird, we're going to kind of take a little bit of a turn here, but getting straight financially is such a stress reliever. Holy cow. And I'm not like going to pitch some service to you. I'm just saying, like, that was one of the biggest things that I got advice from and got help with when I went through what I did, was getting some finances straightened out, so that wasn't just this overwhelming, like, pressure on me that was just making everything worse. You know what I mean? So whatever you have to do, you talk to somebody that can help you with that, do that. That helps stress a ton. And then your relationship with your spouse and your children, if you are married, is also probably the third leg to that stress relief and emotional mental health triangle. So I'm like, my spirituality, you could say finances are basically my worldly things are taken care of, what I'm responsible for. And then my relationships with my wife and my children are those 3. I can't tell you which one's more important, because I don't think either one of them is more important necessarily, because they all play such a key role in my emotional stability. Right. But making sure that I am giving my wife and my children the attention that they need, and that my relationships with them are good. And I think if I can focus adequately on all 3 of those, that there's not a whole lot that I can't overcome if I'm square on all those 3.
Outstanding. Those are 3 great things, and they're all in the chat right now. Figure out what you believe in and get strong with that. Get straight financially, fiscally, and then, of course, your relationships with your significant other and families. Make that strong, and be present. Be present with that relationship. Don't be outside of it. So,
if I can throw one other thing in there, just a little value add for anybody else here that's listening. If you do go to my website, if you go to westonbrandon.com, you should get a pop-up window that's a free ebook. I wrote a little ebook called God's Laws of Success, and that dives a little bit deeper if you want to have a little bit more faith-based approach on how to make secular success happen. I wrote a little ebook like about that. I didn't get to talk a whole lot about those things today, but that is what I'm most passionate about teaching other people. And I'm actually building a community of young adult men, like 18 to 25, that are wanting faith-based anchored material to launch secular success from. So if you want something like that, you can go check that out too.
outstanding. Thank you, Weston, for sharing that with the Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation, go to westonbrandon.com, and when that pop-up window comes up, hit it, and it gets emailed to them, I'm guessing, in the link, and they'll be able to open it up. And keep it on your tablet, your phone, wherever you are. That way you can check it out and get that success going. Weston, thank you for hanging out with us tonight and spending some time away from your family to hang out with us on a Sunday night and just share your knowledge and share your journey with us. It was an amazing journey.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. I really enjoyed this one. It was a good time.
Outstanding. Misfit Nation, as always, remember, you are important. You are loved. Do not make a permanent solution to a temporary problem. If you see that darkness coming in, remember, a day tomorrow is better with you than it is without you. Phone your friends. Take that 1-inch piece of paper out of your wallet that we tell you to have. Call those 3 people. If they can't help you, dial 988. Get the help you need. 988 works. If you really don't want to do that, contact us. info@themisfitnation.com, Jake@themisfitnation.com, or Steven@themisfitnation.com. we will be there for you. We will stay on the line with you until we get you the help you need so you're with us tomorrow. Till next time, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling. Because we are the Misfit Nation.
Thanks for checking us out and being a part of the Misfit Nation show. Don't forget to visit our website at themisfitnation.com. That's themisfitnation.com. Check out all our past episodes and get some of the great Misfit Nation gear for you and your family. As always, be humble, stay hungry, and keep hustling because we are
Misfit Nation. Misfit Nation.